นี่จะเอาใส่
How long is it going to take before you reach the heights, do you think?
Years and years.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah, a lot of hard work, a lot of lucky breaks.
Well, if we get the time to rehearse and a bit of time off, just relax it a bit, I think we could go really far. But I mean, it's just a matter of being able to get that time to rehearse and time to relax so that we can be ourselves rather than be, like everyone else in the rock and roll scene.
A bit shaky at first. We're doing it, just putting ourselves, being positive about it. We're getting into it.
How has yourself settled down into the band?
Oh, well, I've been playing for about 7 years. It sort of came natural. But actually presenting on stage presenting and playing was the hard bit, the entertaining side of it. That was the hard bit, but getting it together. Yeah.
Bill, you've had a brief taste of the interstate scene. Is there any great difference between Melbourne and Sydney that you've seen?
Yeah, there is actually. I find that Sydney's got a lot more new bands starting up there. Melbourne sort of seems to have a lot of the old established acts. A bit punky up there, a lot of punks. Besides that, it's pretty similar. There's a lot more venues. There seems to be a lot more venues in Sydney.
Which area do you prefer?
I enjoy going into state because it's a bit more exciting. There's new faces and new places, and it's different. But it's also good to be back at home because there's a following down here. There's also a good following in Sydney too. Sydney's a bit different because you find that the band's probably a little larger than life in Sydney because people don't see us as much. Or they might see us on the TV or something like that, and then all of a sudden there we are in the flesh. Whereas down here we're more down to earth, I think.
You've been, I hate to say this, but you've been compared with a band called The
Oh,
Sports.
look, don't talk to me about that band.
No, you've got to answer it.
I don't know why. They're tired. We're not tired yet. I can't see any similarity between the music. I keep getting told that there are similarities between me and Steve Cummings. I can't see it. Then again, I'm obviously very subjective about it. I don't know. I mean, it's really unfortunate. It's really annoying. But it's something you've got to live with. I mean, I think people find they've got to pigeonhole you,
Yeah.
Especially a new band, they've got to think, well, they're not punk and they're not this and they're not that. So we've got to find a pigeonhole for them, and they're closest thing to sports, I guess.
The fact that you come from Mornington Peninsula, has that affected the band at all compared to, say, other groups from the inner suburbs?
Well, I think there's a basic different attitude, really, I suppose. Like, obviously the environment is a large contributing factor in whatever influence you have in your music. I think because we come from down at the peninsula, it's a lot more light-hearted and just generally less serious, I think, than the bands that come from the inner suburbs.
What do you see as the future of Australian Crawl?
I don't know, records, I guess. I don't know, I really don't know.
Well, what, more interstate or perhaps even overseas trips?
Oh, hopefully in a few years. I mean, but that takes a long time,
I don't know, it's been good fun. It's a lot of fun, but it just gets a bit tiring, I mean, if you do more than 4 or 5 gigs a week, it just gets a bit too much. You lose that sort of vibe, and it just gets too sort of... Hey, Ryan.
What's the travelling like in a week? How much travelling do you do?
Well, it varies. I mean, if you do a gig down at Warrnambool or something like that, or a gig up at the Snow, then it's extreme. But normally it's about 200 to 300 miles away.
Simon, what's the involvement of Little River Band's David Briggs in the group?
Well, David's our producer. He produced our first single, our demos, and he will be producing our album, our first album.
How did he become involved in the group?
The guys from Stars saw us and liked us, and just happened to mention, well, David actually mentioned to the guys that he was looking for a band to produce because he wanted to embark on a producing career. So the guys from Stars suggested he contact us, so he came along and saw us. For some reason liked the band, and there we are.
What's the disadvantages of travelling with a band such as Australian Crawl, just a new, fresh group?
Disadvantages? Oh, there's just learning the ropes. There's no, that's about it, just learning the ropes.
Does travelling get you down at all?
No, I love it. I love it. I travel all the time. This is the life for me.
Now, you've had a pretty rapid rise since you first started. How do you look forward to the next 6 or 12 months? What do you predict?
Oh, Lord knows. I don't know, like, I mean, it's so hard to keep up with, it could be anything. I hope it doesn't go too fast, because when it does, you tend to lose perspective of really what's happening and not perhaps appreciate it as much as you could if it went a little slower.
How would you like the band to go?
Well, eventually, I mean, as far as possible. I'd really like to go overseas, obviously, and make a lot of money out of it. But I just want it to happen at a reasonable rate, so we can, as I say, look at it a little more objectively and appreciate it.
It goes in steps, like ambition or less. The album, the first album, is the seeing yourself on film. Yeah, the album's the first one. Ultimately, America, the big thing.
What's your ambition with the band? What do you hope to achieve?
As much as I can. I just want to be rich. I want to be in the Bahamas with a huge farm. I just want to be go as far as I can, you know. And at the moment, it's been really satisfying because we've come a long way really fast, you know. But I don't know. I think it's going to be great. I just want it to go as far as it can.
Okay, we're going Australian Crawl. Hey! Song about Mount Eliza. It's called Boot Hill. Hey! Yeah.
We were in Newcastle and they had that huge riot, and we've had to be shut down and stopped towards the end of our gig because the mob was meant to be coming down the street and ready to ransack the joint.
From what I hear, we've got a more fresh approach than a lot of the bands around. I like to think that's true, but as I say, it's hard to look at it objectively. Like, we've always wanted to be in a successful band, and for some reason I personally had suspected that it would happen, but they still come as mild shocks, all the different stages of the development. I mean, they still come, like the album, the record signing, all that still comes as a mild shock, even though you, to a certain extent, expect it, perhaps, I don't know.
I'd just like to see the band grow steadily and increase its musical credibility, get some good songs and some improved playing under our belt, and aim for the top of this country and then aim for overseas, I hope. I suppose that's the ambition of most bands in this country.
Personally, what do you hope to achieve?
Well, I'd like to see the band get overseas and become a recording band, because I think that there's not much future for bands in Australia. You work and then you get into a rut and you grind to a halt after 7 years, like bands like Sherbet. And unless you can progress and move over to the American market or the European market, it gets a bit sort of boring here after a while. So that's what I'd like to aim for, America.
I predict America. I predict we'll do it over there. We'll get into the. It's hard to say, but I'd really like to see us over there.
To make great records and go overseas. To end up living in LA.
For good.
For good. Well, you know, like for good professionally. I mean, I'd like to live in the south of France. Actually, it'd be nice to live in the south of France and have just run a little wine shop or something and have it play in the local band. I mean, that's what I'd like to do ultimately, and have a little studio and make records.
After heaps of success.
Oh, after heaps of success,